12 betrayals. Some of them cost him money, some of them cost him the band. One of them he's still fighting about right now, in public, in his 70s. You know the story you've been told. Roger Waters, the difficult one, the guy who blew up Pink Floyd. And most of that story is told by the people he fell out with. So tonight we're doing it the other way round. 12 wounds, in his order. And the last one hasn't closed.
Hush.
12. The men who discovered them picked the other guy. April 1968. Pink Floyd has just lost Syd Barrett. And then something happens that almost nobody talks about. The men who found them look at what's left and walk away. Peter Jenner and Andrew King. Two guys who got into management more or less by accident. They spotted Pink Floyd at the Marquee in 1966 and built a company around them called Black Hill Enterprises. And here's the detail that tells you everything about that era. It was a six-way partnership. Two managers, 4 band members, equal splits. Nobody taking a cut off the top. Very 1966. Then Syd goes, and Jenner and King make a call. They keep Syd. They dissolve the arrangement with the band. Their read was simple. Barrett was the creative force, and there was no future in Pink Floyd without him. Sit with that for a second. You're 24 years old. Your best friend from Cambridge has just come apart in front of you, and the two people whose entire job was to believe in your band have just told you, in the politest possible English, that the band's over. You've probably had a version of this. Not a record deal, but that moment where the people who were supposed to be in your corner quietly move to the other side of the room. And they're not even being cruel about it. They just don't rate you. Here's what gets me though. Jenner and King weren't stupid. They were right about Syd and completely wrong about everything else. Within 5 years, the band they walked away from made the album that stayed on the American chart for something close to a decade and a half. Waters never had to say a word about it. The catalog said it for him. The band ended up with a booker named Steve O'Rourke instead. Remember that name. He comes back on this list, and not as a friend. "11. The Friend Who Lost Dark Side of the Moon, 1978. Pink Floyd are one of the biggest bands on earth, and they're going broke. Here's how. After Dark Side, after Wish You Were Here, the money is coming in faster than anyone's accountant can handle. UK tax at the top end is brutal. We're talking 83%. So the band puts its money into a financial firm called the Norton Warburg Group, run by a man named Andrew Warburg. The idea was legal. Route the income through a venture capital structure, defer the tax, invest in small British businesses. And this is the part that turns it from a business story into a personal one. Warburg wasn't a stranger. He was a friend. By some accounts, godfather to Waters' children. The investments went into a scattering of small companies. A lot of them failed. So now the band is looking at the worst possible arithmetic. The money is gone, and the taxman may still want 83% of it. Waters described it later in about the bluntest terms a person can use. They'd gone from kids with cheap guitars, to the dream actually coming true, to standing in a room, realizing they'd lost the lot, millions, nearly everything Dark Side earned. But here's the twist. That disaster is the reason The Wall exists in the form you know it. They needed an album, they needed it huge, and they needed to make it outside the UK. Which is why the biggest concept album in rock history got recorded in the south of France by a band in tax exile. Warburg's company collapsed. He left the country. He came back to Britain and went to prison for 3 years. And Roger Waters got the single most famous line of his career out of it. A story about a man building a wall around himself, while everything on the outside takes something from him. If you were around when the wall landed, and you thought it was just about a rock star's ego. It wasn't. It was about a man who'd just been robbed by someone he'd invited to Christmas.
Let's look at the numbers. Only 9% of you are actually subscribed. Honestly, that's tough to see. Our team spends days hunting down archives and verifying every single fact just to tell these stories right. If you've made it this far into the video, you're clearly part of the community, so please hit subscribe. It costs nothing and helps us immensely. Now, for those already subscribed, very few of you have made the jump to our membership, and that's a hard pill to swallow because you're the ones who know our value best. If this channel has moved you or inspired you, consider joining. It's the price of one coffee, but it's the literal fuel for this channel. Let's keep this alive together. Back to the story.
10. The dinner conversation that ended a friendship. Bob Ezrin, Canadian producer. The man Waters personally brought in because he wanted a collaborator who thought the way he thought. And Ezrin delivered. He's the reason Comfortably Numb exists in the shape it exists. He pushed Waters into finishing lyrics for a piece of music Waters had written off. They fought constantly through those sessions. It worked. He was so protective of that record that when Columbia sent someone to collect the master tapes in the middle of a royalty dispute, Ezrin took the tapes home with him every night rather than hand them over. That's the guy. That's how far in he was. Teacher, leave them kids alone. Then comes 1980. The album's finished. Now they're building the tour. And the tour has a secret. An actual wall, brick by brick, going up between the band and the audience across the length of the show. Nobody outside the operation knows. Ezrin has signed an NDA, and a journalist calls him a friend. Someone who'd been shadowing him for a profile. The guy can't get to the show. He's begging. He says, "Come on, it's me. It's just between us." So Ezrin, cooking dinner, tells him a little. Next issue of Billboard, over dinner with Bob Ezrin, we learned, Ezrin's own words, decades later, Waters went nuclear. And then, in the same breath, he says the thing that makes this entry hurt. He had every right to. Here's what gets me. Ezrin has never spun it. He's had 45 years to blame someone else, and he's never taken the exit. He calls it entirely his own fault, and says it taught him something he never forgot. Didn't matter. He never worked with Roger Waters again, not on a Waters solo record, not once. But he did work with Pink Floyd again, the Gilmour version, in 1987, on the album that came out of the war we're about to get into. Nine, the phone call that went over his head, 1981. Relax. They're making The Wall into a film. Alan Parker directing, Bob Geldof playing Pink, Waters writing the screenplay, and Waters and Parker do not get on. That's not gossip. That's on the record. The run-ins are well documented, and at one point Parker walks off the production entirely, leaving Waters to take over. Now, put yourself in that room. Roger's version of the world is very simple. This is my story, my father, my album, my film. If the director walks, I direct. Except somebody else picks up a phone. David Gilmour goes around him, talks to Parker, coaxes him back to the set. From the outside, that's someone saving a movie. From where Waters was standing, it was something else entirely. A member of his own band deciding, privately, that Roger couldn't be trusted with Roger's own material. And Gilmour himself has pointed at that moment as the thing that changed Waters' attitude toward him personally. Not a musical argument, not money, a phone call. Here's the thing about betrayal. It almost never looks like betrayal from the outside. It usually looks like somebody being reasonable. And that's the part that's hard to forgive, isn't it? If someone lies to you, you've got somewhere to put the anger. But when someone goes behind your back and it works out, and everyone tells them they did the right thing, you don't get to be angry. You just get to remember. Waters remembered. The very next record they made together, Gilmour would come out of it with no production credit and one lead vocal on 12 songs. We'll get to that, because it's on this list. The manager who refused to be fired, mid-1985. And this one's the strangest entry on the whole list, because Roger Waters tried to fire someone and simply couldn't. Steve O'Rourke had managed Pink Floyd since 1968, 17 years. He'd started as an accountant and a booking agent, took over when Jenner and King walked, negotiated the deals, ran the business. He was also close to Gilmour and Mason in a way he wasn't close to Waters. They raced cars together. Le Mans, 1979. Gilmour and O'Rourke in the same car. By 1985, O'Rourke is pressing Waters to make another Pink Floyd album. Waters doesn't want to, so Waters moves to terminate his personal management deal. Gilmour and Mason won't ratify it. Think about what that means mechanically. The partnership structure meant Waters couldn't just walk away from his own manager.
You raise the blade.
He needed the others to sign off, and they said no, so the manager stayed, attached to the band, on the other side of the table. It got uglier. O'Rourke went after Waters in court over withheld commissions. And when the real war came, the war over the name, the man negotiating against Roger Waters was the same man who'd been negotiating for him since Roger was 24 years old. That's in O'Rourke's obituary as one of his achievements. Negotiating Pink Floyd's split with Roger Waters. You know that feeling when you realize the room you're in isn't your room anymore? That the furniture is the same, the faces are the same, and somehow you're the guest? That's 1985 for Roger Waters, and he hasn't even quit yet. Seven, the moment he found out the name wasn't his. December 1985. Waters writes to EMI in London and CBS in New York and invokes the leaving member clause. He's out. And in his head, that's the end of Pink Floyd. Not the end of his Pink Floyd. The end of the thing.
But it was only fantasy.
He'd been the principal writer since 1968 and the conceptual driver for a decade. As far as he was concerned, the band was, in his words to the High Court, a spent force creatively. Then the lawyers explained the world to him. He told the BBC about it years later, and it's one of the few times he's ever described being genuinely outmaneuvered. He goes to them and says, "Look, we're broke. This isn't Pink Floyd anymore." And they tell him that's irrelevant. It's a label. It has commercial value. You don't get to declare that it stops existing. There's a version of this that's funny. There's a version that's not, because the deeper injury wasn't legal. Go back a year to 1984, a dinner with Waters, Gilmour, Mason, and O'Rourke. Four men leave that table having agreed something. Gilmour and Mason walk out thinking the band carries on after Roger's solo detour. Waters walks out convinced it's finished. Same dinner, same conversation, two completely different futures. That's the loneliest thing on this whole list, and it's got nothing to do with contracts. Sometimes you find out the people you've spent 20 years with have been having a slightly different conversation the entire time. And you know what's worse? Nobody lied. Everybody just heard what they needed to hear. Six, the car that didn't stop. Late January, 1968. A car heading to Southampton University. Syd Barrett isn't in it. David Gilmour has told this story more than once, and he's careful about it because he was the new guy, 19 days into the job, sat in the back, no standing to say anything. His recollection is that somebody asked whether they were going to pick Syd up, and somebody else said don't bother. According to Gilmour, that somebody was Roger. They played that night with the incredible string band and Tyrannosaurus Rex. Syd Barrett was never in Pink Floyd again. Now, was it justified? Almost certainly. Barrett was unreachable by then. There'd been the last rehearsal where he brought in a song he called Have You Got It Yet? And every time they tried to learn it, he changed it, and he kept singing the title at them, and eventually they understood they never would. Waters said the thing everyone quotes, he was their friend, and most of the time they wanted to strangle him. But here's what I keep coming back to. There was no meeting, no conversation. No one said, Syd, mate, sit down, we need to talk. There was a car and a shrug and a decision that changed 4 lives, made in about 2 seconds on a road out of London. And Roger Waters spent the rest of his career writing about absence. Shine on You, Crazy Diamond, Wish You Were Here, Half of the Wall, every song about the empty chair. If you've ever done the easy version of a hard thing, not the cruel version, just the version where you avoid the conversation, you already know how long that stays with you. It's not guilt exactly. It's the knowledge that you had a chance to be better, and you took the quiet exit instead. He never forgave the people who left Syd behind. He was one of them. Five, The Ultimatum, 1979. The Wall Sessions, and Roger Waters decides Rick Wright is out. The context matters. Wright is in the middle of a divorce. He's low, he's disengaged. And he's later said something about that period that's quietly devastating, that looking back, he didn't realize it at the time, but he was depressed. Waters wanted him gone, and Wright didn't have to guess about the leverage, because Waters told him. Wright's own account, leave, or I'll take the wall, an album already recorded as a Pink Floyd record, and put it out myself. The band is broke. Norton Warburg has gutted them. They need this album and the advance that comes with it, or they are genuinely finished. Nobody in that room could call the bluff. Wright resigned. They didn't announce it. They didn't want the story competing with the album, so they hired him back as a salaried session player. On wages. In the band he co-founded, and the tour lost an enormous amount of money. The staging, the wall, the puppets, the plane, the 3 remaining full members ate the losses personally. Rick Wright, on a fixed fee, was the only member of Pink Floyd who made money from the wall. Nick Mason has told that one for decades, and he tells it dry, because what else can you do with it? But strip the joke off and look at what's underneath. A man walked into a building he helped build, played the parts he'd always played, and collected a wage. Present in the sound, erased from the ownership. And I'll say this, and some of you are going to disagree with me, this is the one that eventually cost Waters the band, because when the war came, Rick Wright already knew exactly which side he was on. Four, the credit he took off. David Gilmour, 1982. The final cut. They'd stopped being able to work in the same building. Gilmour and Waters recording separately, different studios, different engineers, notes passed between them. Michael Kamen brought in to write the orchestrations, cover the keyboards Wright wasn't there to play, and to referee. And Kamen cracked. There's a famous moment where Waters, mid-session, notices him scribbling on a pad and demands to know what he's writing. Kamen had filled pages with the same absurd sentence over and over, just to survive the meeting. Waters was not amused. Gilmour started that album as a co-producer. He didn't finish it as one. After enough argument, he gave up the credit, kept his share of the producer's royalties, but took his name off. His own line about the period is the flattest, saddest thing a founding member has ever said about his own band. If you need a guitar player, call me and I'll come and do it. The finished record, every song written by Roger Waters alone, 12 tracks. Gilmour sings lead on one, and Mason got replaced by a session drummer on one song because the time changes weren't landing. Now here's the part I want you to sit with. The final cut is the album about Waters' father, a man who died in the Second World War when Roger was a baby. It's the most personal record he ever made. It is, at its core, an album about being abandoned. He made it by systematically removing everybody else from the room.
Stop, Rich! Break! Ha-ha!
The day he sued his own band, October 31st, 1986. Roger Waters goes to the High Court in London to have Pink Floyd formally dissolved. Gilmour and Mason fight it. Gilmour's position was blunt. He'd put 20 years into that band, and he wasn't going to be pushed out of something he considered partly his. And it got petty in a way that reads like satire. Waters warned promoters, not just the band, anyone advertising a show as Pink Floyd. Meanwhile, both camps took the fight to the press. So if you were a fan in 1987, you got 2 competing tours, 2 competing albums, and 2 men publicly arguing about which one was Pink. Then the market voted.
Just squeeze up the shirt. You're good for the parties. You wear the right.
A momentary lapse of reason went to number 3 on both sides of the Atlantic, and the tour that followed ran for nearly 2 years and something like 197 shows. Just before Christmas 1987, the 3 of them met on Gilmour's converted houseboat on the Thames and signed it away. Gilmour and Mason kept the name. Waters kept the conceptual rights to the wall and the right to stage it, and, of all things, the rights to the inflatable pig from Animals, which produced the single most ridiculous footnote in rock history. Because when the Gilmour version of the band wanted to fly a pig on tour, using Waters' pig meant paying Waters. So they redesigned it. They gave it testicles. Now it was a male pig, legally distinct, no royalty, 40 feet of helium and spite. And here's the ending nobody expects. In 2013, on the BBC, Roger Waters was asked about the lawsuit, and he didn't spin it, didn't contextualize it, didn't blame anyone.
Have a natural tendency.
3 words, I was wrong. Then, of course I was. Who cares? The man everybody calls incapable of admitting fault admitted it on camera. It just took 27 years, and by then there was nothing left to fix. Two 20 Minutes in Hyde Park, January 1996. Pink Floyd goes into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Gilmour's there, Wright's there, Mason's there. Billy Corgan does the induction and jokes about grabbing extra trophies because 2 members are off playing different tunes. Syd's living quietly in Cambridge and isn't coming. Roger just doesn't show. Gilmour and Wright play Wish You Were Here, a song about a missing man, in a room where the man who wrote the words is deliberately absent. 9 years pass, then Bob Geldof starts building Live 8, and he wants Pink Floyd. Gilmour says no first. Geldof goes to Waters, who says yes immediately, and then has to ask Geldof for Gilmour's phone number because he doesn't have it. He didn't have his phone number. Gilmour eventually came round, though he compared the idea to sleeping with your ex-wife, which is about as warm as it got. Rehearsals were tense. Waters wanted to rearrange things. Gilmour insisted people had come for the songs the way they remembered them, and Gilmour won. July 2nd, 2005. 20 minutes, 4 songs. Breathe, Money, Wish You Were Here, Comfortably Numb. First time those 4 men had stood on a stage together since 1981. And Waters said something up there that didn't sound like Roger Waters at all, that it was actually quite emotional, standing there with these 3 guys after all these years. Afterwards, reportedly, a 9-figure offer landed for a full reunion tour. They turned it down. Rick Wright died in September 2008. Not a betrayal by anyone. Just the discovery that the door had been open the whole time, and they'd walked through it once, for 20 minutes, for charity, and then let it shut. If you've ever left a phone call unmade because it felt too awkward, and then ran out of time to make it, you already know the shape of this one. And I know some of you have. That's not a small thing to carry. One, the history itself. And here's the one that's still open. 2020. Roger Waters posts a video and says he's been banned by David Gilmour from the Pink Floyd website and its social channels.
Mother, should I run for president?
30 million followers he can't reach. His read on it, in his own words, Gilmour thinks he is Pink Floyd, thinks Roger's irrelevant, thinks Roger should keep his mouth shut.
Try to break my balls.
Then it gets more specific. There's a new James Guthrie mix of Animals sitting on a shelf, finished in 2018, not released. And according to Waters, the holdup is a set of liner notes by the journalist Mark Blake. Notes that put Waters at the center of the album's concept, its writing, its cover. Waters says Gilmour vetoed the release unless the notes came out. And this is the sentence that turns a business dispute into the deepest cut on this list. Waters claims Gilmour doesn't dispute that the history in those notes is accurate. He just wants it to stay secret.
Mother, should I build the wall?
Now, Gilmour's camp has always argued the notes skewed the picture and undersold everyone else. That's a real argument, and reasonable people land on both sides of it. I'd tell you which side I'm on, but I already know the comments are going to split down the middle on this one, Will. In the end, Waters agreed to let the reissue go out with no notes at all. It arrived in September 2022, 32 pages of photographs and memorabilia, and not one word of history. And then he published Blake's essay on his own website. "Thanks, Mark," he wrote. "Sorry you were redacted. That's number one. Not the money, not the manager, not even the name." By the end, the thing Roger Waters couldn't let go of wasn't ownership of Pink Floyd. It was authorship of what happened inside it. Who did what? Who was in the room? Whose idea it actually was? Because a man can lose the name and still tell the story. It's when they take the story that there's nothing left.
But she might let you think Mama's gonna keep baby